If you own XRP, pay close attention, because what I'm about to say could change the way you see your whole portfolio. The question, when will XRP moon, has been on our minds for years. That magical day when the price finally explodes, wallets get bigger, and dreams come true. But here's the truth I've realized recently. Maybe we've been asking the wrong question this whole time. When I understood what the real question is, it completely changed how I felt about XRP and about this entire market. I'm going to tell you exactly what I saw that made me stop in my tracks. This isn't financial advice. I'm just sharing what I've learned and how it changed my perspective. Someone named Al Giara wrote a post that stood out from everything else. His words cut through all the noise. He said the real question isn't when will XRP moon, but when will its price stop being pushed down. That single idea hit me deep. It put words on something I had been feeling for a long time but couldn't explain. It was like pulling back a curtain. Suddenly, it all made sense. For years, XRP has felt like a spring that's wound too tight, full of potential energy, ready to explode. But somehow, it never gets to fully release. When I first started investing in crypto, XRP was the riskiest thing in my portfolio. It reminded me of Rocky Balboa, tough, underrated, and primed for a knockout blow. I used to wake up every morning, rub my eyes, and check the price instantly. Is today the day? When moon? I must have thought that 1,000 times I refreshed the app with my heart pounding, as if one glance could send it straight to the sky. But the truth is, XRP hasn't just been sleeping all these years, it's been held down. Picture a beach ball shoved underwater. It doesn't matter how much buoyancy it has. It won't rise until the hand holding it down finally lets go. And every time XRP tried to move up, something or someone seemed to push it back down. I started noticing strange patterns. The price spikes out of nowhere. Suddenly, huge sell walls appear, volume jumps, then disappears. Fake orders, bots, and tools that look less like normal trading and more like mechanisms to control momentum. The more I studied it, the harder it was to ignore. At first, it felt almost too crazy to be real. But then I went back to one key moment, December 2020. Ripple was finally gaining serious traction. They had partnered with MoneyGram. On-demand liquidity was expanding. XRP was starting to press against that invisible ceiling, and then out of nowhere, the SEC dropped their lawsuit. The timing? Perfect, or rather, perfectly strategic. It wasn't just about regulation. It was like slamming the brakes at the exact moment XRP was gaining speed. The damage was immediate. Exchanges panicked. U.S. traders were cut off almost overnight. Trading pairs disappeared. One day, you could buy and sell XRP anywhere. The next day, it was gone from major U.S. platforms, pushed into the shadows. That wasn't just a coincidence, that was suppression. In just a few days, the price went from around 70 cents down to 20 cents. Brutal. But here's what almost nobody talks about. XRP survived. It didn't vanish, it didn't die, it kept going. Ripple didn't fold either. They pivoted globally. They strengthened their position outside the US, Asia, Europe, the Middle East. ODL corridors were still being built. Money was moving using XRP, but here's the key. A lot of that happened off exchange, through OTC deals and private infrastructure that doesn't show up on public charts. Think of it like this. On the surface, you have the public highway. Noisy, crowded, and easy to watch. But underneath, there's a hidden network of tunnels where the real traffic flows quietly out of sight. Those tunnels are what Ripple built. While retail investors stared at flat charts and boring candles, big players were using XRP's utility in the background. Where it doesn't show up in the usual price action, that's what suppression looks like. Real demand pushed underground. A coil spring locked in place. And that should make you sit up in your chair, because when that spring is finally released, it doesn't move slowly. It snaps. Let me be clear again. This is not financial advice. I'm not telling you to go all in on anything. I'm telling you what I see and why I think the question, when will XRP moon, is missing the point. While U.S. retail investors were blocked, certain institutions still had ways in, not through public exchanges, but through private deals, OTC channels, and structured arrangements. Retail got shut out. Big money didn't. Most people only saw the surface, a chart that looked dead, a coin that wasn't moving. But under the surface, whales and institutions were accumulating, structuring, and preparing. That's why Algiara's point hit me so hard. The real question isn't when does XRP moon? The real question is, when does the control end? In 2023, after years of legal battles, a judge finally clarified something crucial. Buying or selling XRP on an exchange does not automatically make it a security. That ruling was huge. Almost overnight, Coinbase and Kraken relisted XRP for US customers. And when that dam cracked, what happened? XRP went from around 45 cents to about 90 cents in a flash. That wasn't random hype. That was suppressed energy finally getting a moment to escape. Max put it well. Gary Gensler's crackdown wasn't really about killing XRP. It was about slowing it down, delaying the inevitable, giving traditional finance time to build rails and infrastructure before the new system arrives. Because once XRP fully activates, it's not just XRP that moves, it pulls the entire system with it. That's why I don't obsess over when moon anymore. The moon is not a date. The moon is the moment when control ends and the spring is released. Until then, there will be dips, sideways chop, and boring phases. Every one of those phases is just more energy being stored. Now let's talk about what comes next. Because the story doesn't end with suppression. That's just the setup. In the background, there are hidden tunnels of utility ready to break into the open. Regulatory walls are starting to crack. Major players are positioning themselves for a future where XRP isn't just another altcoin, it's infrastructure. When XRP got that partial legal clarity in 2023, we saw a preview of what happens when pressure is released, even just a bit. 45 cents to 90 cents, almost overnight. Now imagine that concept on a global scale. What happens when regulation is clear in multiple major regions? Banks and institutions are free to use XRP openly. On-demand liquidity isn't just a pilot, but a standard on-demand liquidity is no longer a tiny experiment. It's already being used to move real value across borders in regions like Africa, Asia, the Middle East, and Europe. We're not talking about a few small transfers, we're talking about real money moving at scale, with XRP as the bridge asset. Millions, and eventually billions, flowing quietly through the system. And most of that doesn't show up on the charts you check every day. These are big, behind-the-scenes flows. OTC deals, institutional corridors, government and bank-level pilots. Retail charts show you the tip of the iceberg. The foundation is being built underneath. And when that foundation is complete, it can support structures that are far bigger than anything we've seen before. If you're thinking long-term, you already know what this means. Real value doesn't come from hype. Real value comes from use, from being the plumbing of the global financial system, not just a speculative ticker. And that's exactly where XRP is being positioned. Now let's talk about accumulation retail traders see a flat chart and get bored. Smart money sees a suppressed, fundamentally strong asset and starts building a position. Every month, Ripple unlocks escrowed XRP. Those coins aren't evaporating. They're moving into stronger hands, institutions, partners, liquidity providers, the kind of players who think in years, not days. Ripple has built relationships with central banks, regulators, financial institutions, and payment companies around the world. Those aren't just handshakes for press releases. They're strategic corridors waiting for the moment when XRP can flow freely, without restrictions. Fast forward for a second. Imagine, Ripple is completely past the legal shadow. Regulations are clearer in major countries. Exchanges no longer fear the SEC. ODL is live and scaled. Suddenly, volume on public markets explodes. The hidden tunnels of OTC activity start connecting back to open liquidity. Suppressed demand finally hits the visible market. At that point, XRP is no longer priced purely as a speculative asset. It's priced as infrastructure, not just a coin, but a foundational piece of the new financial system. And once the market truly internalizes that, the upside isn't linear, it's exponential. Look at Bitcoin. Its story is store of value. Look at Ethereum. Its story is smart contracts and DeFi now. Look at XRP. Its story is moving money, the core function of global banking. And unlike Bitcoin or Ethereum, XRP was designed from the ground up to be fast, efficient, scalable, enterprise ready. So here's the big question. Which type of asset has the biggest long-term upside when suppression ends? The one built for speculation or the one built for infrastructure? Now, let's address the thing everyone always wants: price predictions. I'm not going to throw out some crazy target just to get you excited. That's not what I do. Here's what I will say. When supply is tightly controlled, when liquidity surges, and when global demand suddenly steps into the open because XRP is powering real corridors worldwide, the price is not going to move in a smooth, gentle curve. It's going to jump in stages. Each stage brings in more attention, more money, more demand. You don't need to know the exact moon number. You just need to understand that the moon isn't a date on your calendar. It's the moment when control breaks and true price discovery begins. Think about this. In 2017, XRP hit around $3. Back then, ODL was basically nothing. Infrastructure was primitive. There were no large-scale bank corridors. It was almost purely hype and speculation. Today, the infrastructure is far more advanced. Real-world usage exists. Corridors are active, yet the price is still being held down. That's why I believe that once suppression truly ends, the move that follows will make 2017 look small in comparison. You might be thinking, if this is so obvious, why hasn't it happened yet? Because big shifts don't happen overnight. Power structures don't give up control easily. Regulatory clarity takes time, but the direction is clear. Look at the partnerships. Look at the pilots. Look at the legal decisions. Look at how much effort has gone into slowing XRP down, not erasing it. You don't fight that hard to control something that doesn't matter. If you've held XRP through the worst moments, you already know this feeling. You've seen the frustration, you've watched the attacks, and yet XRP is still here. That resilience is the signal. XRP was built to survive pressure. The longer it's held down, the more violent the release can be. That's the mindset shift that changed everything for me. Don't just ask, when moon? Start asking, what's holding the moon back? And how long can that realistically last? When you understand suppression, you stop seeing XRP as a dead asset. You start seeing it as a compressed spring. And springs don't stay compressed forever.